All right. So are you ready to go deep on Dennis Rodman today?
Always up for a deep dive, especially one with a story like Rodman's.
Yeah. So we've got these two biographical articles from
Right,
him.
right.
And it just paints this picture of like this incredible athlete.
Yes.
But then also this like wild personality. And there's so much there.
Oh, yeah.
So I figured we'd try to unpack it all and see what we could learn about like what made this guy tick, you know?
Yeah, I'm game if you are. I mean, his story really challenges, a lot of our assumptions about talent
Mm-hmm.
and about success, and frankly, just what it even means to be a star athlete.
Okay, so let's start with his childhood.
Okay?
Trenton, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Not an easy start,
Hmm.
right? Like absent father, his mom, Shirley, working like tons of jobs just to kind of keep things afloat.
Yeah.
And get this, the guy who like became this rebounding machine
Right.
wasn't even that into basketball early on.
Really?
Yeah. Cut from his high school football team.
Wow.
Actually quit basketball because he wasn't getting enough playing time.
That's wild.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah, when you think about the player he became, it's almost hard to believe.
Right.
Makes you wonder how many other talented individuals,
Right.
maybe slip through the cracks because they don't fit that mold or
Yeah.
they don't get that early recognition.
Yeah.
What if that scout had never just stumbled upon Rodman during that pickup game?
Yeah.
We might never have known
Yeah, exactly.
the force he was.
So he's working as a janitor at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport,
Oh, wow.
playing some basketball, just kind of casual on the side, and then boom,
Yeah.
chance encounter changes everything.
You see that sometimes in sports, though, right?
Okay.
It reminds me of Giannis
Yeah.
selling trinkets on the streets in Athens
Yeah. Right.
before a scout just happens to see him playing basketball.
Yeah.
It's just these chance encounters really highlight how much talent could be overlooked, in these traditional systems that prioritize early development
Mm.
and these established pipelines.
Yeah, yeah. I see what you mean. So like in his case, it was a recommendation from someone at a rec center
Oh, wow.
that led him to Cook County College in Texas.
Okay.
Played well there, but eventually left and went back home. I guess the academic side of things just wasn't really for him.
Seems
Yeah.
It's but the universe wasn't done with his basketball journey yet.
Right.
Enter Lon Reisman,
Okay.
assistant coach at Southeastern Oklahoma State University.
Okay.
Now, Reisman had actually seen Rodman play at Cook County,
Uh-huh.
thought he was a stud,
Yeah.
but initially he just assumed that Rodman was a D1 prospect, you know?
Right. Right. Makes sense.
Yeah, this guy's clearly talented.
Yeah. So what happened?
So he goes back to Cook County to watch him play again, but he finds out that he's gone.
Oh.
Reisman is determined.
Uh-huh.
He tracks him down.
Wow.
Back in Dallas.
No way.
Knocks on his bedroom door to convince him to play ball.
That's amazing.
Like-
What a lucky break for Rodman, right?
Right.
Like a movie or something.
Totally. So at Southeastern, Rodman's talent finally explodes. 3-time NAIA All-American.
Wow.
And to cap it off,
Yeah.
he drops 46 points and 32 rebounds in his final college game.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's insane.
You can't ignore numbers like that,
Yeah.
even if it's not, a major program.
So obviously that got him noticed by the NBA, right?
For sure.
But what's crazy is that even after all of that, he's still only drafted in the second round
Hmm.
by the Detroit Pistons.
Another sign, right, that his path was anything but typical.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, most second-round picks are, considered long shots.
Yeah.
But the Pistons, led by Chuck Daly and Isaiah Thomas,
Mhm.
they were building something special.
Yeah.
And they saw something in Rodman that others missed.
So this is the era of the bad boys.
Yeah.
Known for their tough physical style.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like Rodman fit right in.
He did. And their back-to-back championships, 89 and 90,
Yeah.
really proved their dominance.
Uh,
Rodman's defense was insane.
oh, yeah.
I mean, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year
Yeah.
and an All-Star. Both those years. Think about that. The guy who's cut from his high school teams
Right.
becomes one of the best defenders in the NBA.
Wow.
What does that tell you about his work ethic?
It's crazy. When you put it like that, it's like he really was making up for lost time.
Totally.
Like proving everyone wrong. I remember reading that Coach Daly compared his energy to a Ferrari
Oh, wow.
that never runs out of gas. It sounds like he brought this really unique intensity
Yeah,
to that already tough Pistons team.
he definitely did. But it makes you wonder, though, right?
Yeah.
Was Rodman, a product of that bad boys environment?
Yeah.
Or did his arrival actually intensify their style even more?
Right.
Like push them to another level?
It's wild how individual personalities can influence like the whole team dynamic.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder how much of his intensity came from like his difficult past.
Totally.
Like Daly became this kind of father figure to him,
Right.
which probably gave him some stability he never had growing up.
Exactly. But even within that successful environment, Rodman's battling some demons.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And that's where things take a darker turn.
So the Pistons dynasty starts to like crumble and things start to unravel for him.
Yeah.
This is where we get into the more complicated part of his story, huh?
Absolutely. You might think winning championships brings fulfillment, but for Rodman, it seems like the opposite happened. He starts to feel lost, unsure of his place. And unfortunately, things escalate pretty quickly.
It's a reminder that, like, success doesn't always equal happiness, you know?
Right, like you might think winning championships would bring a sense of fulfillment.
Yeah.
But for Rodman, it seems like the opposite happened.
Mm.
He starts to feel lost, unsure of his place in the world, and unfortunately, this leads to a really dark moment.
You're talking about that incident in the Pistons parking lot, right?
Yeah.
The one where he was found in his truck with a loaded gun.
Exactly. And it came out later that he was actually contemplating suicide.
Wow.
This is 1993, just a few years after winning those championships.
It's crazy.
It's a chilling reminder that even those who seem to have it all can be battling these serious inner demons.
It's true.
Yeah.
And it really makes you think about the pressure these athletes face. You know,
Oh, yeah.
the constant scrutiny,
Right.
the expectations,
Yeah.
the fear of injury, it can all take a toll.
Totally.
And what's even more tragic is just how often these struggles go unnoticed.
And it's so important, right, to talk about mental health,
Yeah.
especially in the context of pro sports. Like, the culture is often one of toughness, resilience,
Uh-huh.
and that can make it really difficult for these athletes to open up about their vulnerabilities.
Right.
And Rodman's story is like this really stark reminder. Yeah. That we need to be more aware of these issues, right?
Yeah.
And create these environments where athletes feel comfortable seeking help.
For sure. It's a conversation that needs to happen more often, you know,
Yeah,
both within the sports world and just in society as a whole.
absolutely.
So how did Rodman move forward from this, like, incredibly difficult experience?
Well, this incident seems to have been like a major turning point for him.
Okay.
He later described it as a moment where he decided to, quote, kill the imposter
Mhm.
and start living authentically. Like, it was almost as if he shed this persona that he felt pressured to maintain
Right.
and just decided to embrace his true self, you know,
Yeah.
however unconventional it might be.
Right. And that's when we see the emergence of, like, the Rodman we know today, right?
Yes.
Like the piercings,
Yeah.
the ever-changing hair colors,
Uh-huh.
the wild outfits.
Right.
Like, it was like he was making a statement.
It's like a
Yeah.
it's a fascinating psychological shift, right? He goes from trying to fit in to deliberately standing out.
Yeah.
Like, it could be seen as like this form of rebellion
Uh-huh.
against the expectations that have been placed on him,
Yeah.
or maybe it was just simply a way of like reclaiming control.
Yeah.
You know, expressing himself without apology.
I wonder if it was also, like, a way of protecting himself, you know?
Oh,
It's
interesting.
like by putting on this, like, outrageous persona,
Yeah.
he was creating this barrier between his true self
Uh-huh.
and, like, the outside world.
That's an interesting perspective, yeah.
Yeah.
It could have been a way of deflecting criticism.
Right.
Or judgment. Like, by becoming this larger-than-life character, he was almost daring people
Yeah.
to take him seriously.
It's a very complex situation
It is,
with lots of possible interpretations.
for sure.
So this is also around the time that he's traded from the Pistons to the San Antonio Spurs.
Right.
Seemed like a good move on paper.
Yeah.
He could play alongside David Robinson.
Right.
He had a strong organization.
Yeah.
Maybe that stability would be good for him.
On the surface, yes. But if you look deeper into the Spurs culture at the time,
Uh-huh.
it was still very much rooted in, like, tradition and discipline.
Okay.
Coach Bob Hill was known for being, like, a stickler for the rules.
Right.
And their star player, David Robinson, was the epitome of, like, the clean-cut, disciplined athlete.
Yeah.
Rodman, with his increasingly like flamboyant personality
Yeah.
and off-court antics, didn't exactly fit that mold.
And it sounds like those differences, like, eventually caused some friction, you know?
Yeah.
It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where we start to see the clash, right?
Yeah.
Between Rodman's desire for self-expression and the NBA's like more traditional expectations.
Right.
This is still the early 90s.
Yeah.
And the league wasn't quite ready for someone like Rodman.
Yeah. I remember reading a quote from David Robinson where he said, playing with Rodman was like being in a zoo. It doesn't sound like they exactly meshed well.
No, they didn't. And it wasn't just Robinson either.
Okay.
Like there were reports of clashes with the coaching staff,
Right.
frustration from the front office, like they appreciated his rebounding prowess.
Yeah.
But his off-court behavior was becoming a distraction.
So was this a case of the Spurs just simply not being ready for someone like Rodman?
Right.
Or was he genuinely a disruptive force?
It's tricky to look back and judge these situations, right? Through a modern lens.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
The NBA has definitely evolved since then,
For sure.
becoming more accepting of like individuality and self-expression.
Uh-huh.
But back then, there were certain like unspoken rules
Right.
about how players should behave, and Rodman was clearly breaking those rules.
Yeah.
Was it unfair? Perhaps.
Yeah.
But it's also important to remember that, you know, he was part of a team
Uh-huh.
and his actions were impacting others.
It's a balancing act, isn't it?
It is.
Like individuality versus team cohesion. And in Rodman's case, it seems like the scales tipped a little too far in one direction.
Yeah.
So how does this all play out in San Antonio?
Well, his time with the Spurs was relatively short-lived. After 2 seasons, he was traded again.
Okay.
And this time, he landed in a place that no one could have predicted, Chicago.
Chicago?
Yeah.
Wait, you mean he ended up on the Chicago Bulls
That's right.
with Michael Jordan?
The most disciplined, competitive player in the league teamed up with the ultimate rebel.
That's wild.
On paper, it seemed like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
But what happened next is, well, the stuff of legend.
Hold on. This is where it gets really interesting.
Right.
Rodman goes from the Spurs to the Chicago Bulls,
Yep.
joining forces with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen.
Crazy, right?
Talk about an unlikely pairing. Like the ultimate clash of personalities.
It really is.
What were people thinking?
I don't think anyone really knew what to expect, you know? It was this huge gamble by the Bulls general manager, Jerry Krause.
Uh-huh.
He believed that Rodman could be the missing piece they needed
Right.
for another championship run.
Okay.
But a lot of people thought it was a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, you have to wonder what Jordan and Pippen thought about all this.
Right.
Like, they were known for their, intense work ethic.
Yeah.
Commitment to the game.
Right.
How could someone like Rodman, with all his, distractions and antics,
Yeah.
possibly fit into that?
Well, the sources actually mentioned that there was this meeting
Okay.
at Krause's house
Uh-huh.
before the trade was finalized.
Wow.
Jordan, Pippen, Coach Phil Jackson, Krause, and Rodman, they all sat down
Okay.
and hashed things out.
Gotcha.
It was basically an opportunity for everyone to air their concerns.
Right.
And just figure out if this could actually work.
That's fascinating. It must have been a pretty intense meeting.
Oh, I'm sure.
What happened? Did Rodman promise to tone things down?
From what I gather, it was less about Rodman changing who he was
Okay.
and more about everyone understanding their roles.
Okay.
Jordan was the leader, the scorer,
Right.
the guy who demanded excellence from everyone around him.
Yeah.
Pippen was the all-around talent,
Yeah.
the glue that held the team together.
Right.
And Rodman, well,
Yeah.
he was the rebounding machine, the defensive specialist, the guy who did the dirty work that nobody else wanted to do.
So basically, they all agreed to just focus on their strengths
Yeah.
and let their individual talents, complement each other.
Right.
Kind of like a basketball version of the Three Musketeers or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it worked brilliantly.
Wow.
Despite the occasional outbursts and off-court drama,
Right.
Rodman thrived in Chicago.
Yeah.
He led the league in rebounding for 7 straight seasons,
Wow.
including those 3 championship years with the Bulls.
It's crazy. Those Bulls teams were absolutely dominant.
They were.
It's amazing to think that Rodman, who is often seen as this chaotic force,
Right.
played such a crucial role in their success.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think his time in Chicago changed people's perception of him?
I think it definitely added another layer to his story, you know? Here was this guy
Uh-huh.
who had been labeled a troublemaker,
Right.
a misfit,
Yeah.
and yet he was instrumental in one of the most iconic dynasties in NBA history.
It's true.
It showed that even someone who marches to the beat of their own drum can still achieve greatness, within a team structure.
It's true. And it speaks to the power of good coaching, too,
Okay,
right?
sure.
Like Phil Jackson seemed to have this, knack for managing these strong personalities and creating an environment where everyone could thrive.
Absolutely. Jackson understood that, Rodman's intensity and unorthodox style, while sometimes challenging, were ultimately assets to the team.
Right.
He knew how to, channel that energy and make it work for them.
Yeah.
It's a lesson for any leader, really.
Right.
Sometimes the most unconventional individuals can bring something truly special to the table.
It makes you think about, how we define success,
Uh-huh.
both in sports and just in life.
Right.
Rodman's story challenges that traditional narrative.
It really does.
He wasn't always the easiest person to deal with.
Hey.
He didn't always follow the rules.
Yeah.
But he achieved, incredible things.
And he did it on his own terms.
Right.
He never apologized for who he was, even when it rubbed people the wrong way.
Yeah.
He embraced his individuality, his eccentricities, and in a way that made him, a pioneer.
We can't wrap up this deep dive without talking about, Rodman's post-NBA life.
Right.
Particularly, his controversial trips to North Korea.
Yeah.
And his relationship with Kim Jong-un. I mean, it's still hard to comprehend
I know.
how this guy, known for his wild antics,
Right.
ended up, befriending a dictator.
Yeah. Right. It's one of the most, baffling chapters in his story.
It really is.
Some people saw it as a publicity stunt.
Yeah.
Others as, this naive attempt at diplomacy. He even said he deserved a Nobel Peace Prize.
Oh, wow.
For his efforts.
It's hard to know what his true intentions were.
It really is.
But it definitely sparked a lot of debate.
A lot of debate.
It's almost like he was trying to reinvent himself again.
Yeah.
This time as, a peacemaker.
Right.
But it's hard to reconcile that image with the reality of the situation in North Korea.
It definitely raises some uncomfortable questions, about the role of celebrities in international affairs and the complexities of navigating, these sensitive political situations.
It's a reminder that even with someone as, public as Rodman,
Right.
there's still layers to uncover.
Oh, yeah.
Mysteries we may never fully understand.
So where does this leave us?
Yeah.
Dennis Rodman is a walking contradiction.
He is.
A force of nature who defied, categorization. He was troubled, yet talented.
Yeah.
Outrageous, yet dedicated.
Right.
A rebel who found success within a team structure.
His story, forces us to confront our own biases. Question our assumptions about what it means to be, a successful athlete, a good teammate, and even just, a decent human being.
Perhaps the biggest lesson is that we should embrace complexity, and see potential where others don't.
Yeah.
Rodman's life was a testament to that.
It was.
And who knows, maybe there's a little bit of Dennis Rodman in all of us, that desire to break free, to be ourselves, to leave our mark on the world, even if it's in the most unexpected way.
What a wild ride. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the life and times of Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep embracing the unpredictable nature of human experience.